What is up, fam? Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for tuning in. Today's video is highly requested. It is going to be talking about what is in my camera bag or what gear do I use. So starting off, right now I'm actually filming. This is the only camera body I currently own, and it is the Sony a7R II. It is also being used with my Sony Zeiss 16-35 f4. Now let's get into it. First up, we got the good old 50mm 1.8, aka the Nifty 50. Now, for Sony guys, and I think for most camera bodies or camera brands, this 50mm 1.8 is going to be one of your cheapest lenses, and as well as one of the best bang for the buck lenses. Now, is this going to be the sharpest lens in your arsenal? Probably not, but it just is such a good piece of equipment to have. There's so many times I'll be out on a shoot and just reach in my bag and grab this just for shits and giggles, and it ends up producing some awesome images. Another reason I like this is just the versatility. You can use this for full-length car shots, interior shots, you can do portraits, landscapes, really whatever you can imagine. This lens will probably do it for you. Not to mention at its price point, this thing I think brand new only goes for like 250 bucks. You guys can find this used anywhere from like 100 to 150 bucks, like on Facebook Marketplace, Amazon, you name it. These are a dime a dozen. Highly recommend it. Only downside I've noticed is that the focusing motor is a little noisy, a little chattery, nothing too crazy. I usually just use my Zeiss, but this would be good for B-roll if that's something you're into, if you're getting into like the cinematography side of things. For the price point, I don't think you can beat this. It's something good to have in the arsenal because you never know when you're going to reach for it. Next up, we have my workhorse. This bad boy, the behemoth. So this guy right here is my Samyang 35 f1.4. Now I know a lot of you guys are probably thinking, Evan, why aren't you using the Sigma 35-1.4? Reason being is I did test one of my buddies' Sigmas, and I'll be honest guys, I'm not a huge fan of that. In terms of the autofocusing, it just didn't feel all that great. It seemed kind of sluggish, whereas the autofocusing on this seemed a little bit quicker. In terms of overall image quality, it was neck and neck. It's super nitpicky. If I had to pick between the two, honestly, I'd lean towards this guy, the Samyang. Now, that's not to say that the Sigma isn't good. My buddy's copy might have been just not perfect. And not to mention that these do have their own flaws. I got lucky, this copy is good, but I've read several reviews on Amazon that the glass and there's just the focusing motors, certain things can go wrong on these. Now, that is my #1 complaint on this. If you guys watch my Q&A, you probably heard the chattering, and that was actually the focusing motor on this lens right here. It is very, very loud. Now I'm using a lav mic, so that way you don't have to hear that. But with the 16-35 I'm filming on right now, you don't hear that either. But this does do that, but I'm such a fan of the bokeh because of the subject separation this lens gives. It is very, very good. This is what I use for probably 80 to 90% of the photos I post on my Instagram, automotive related wise. It is just a damn good lens. You could use a 35 for portraits. I would prefer the 85, but this is a damn stout lens. I highly recommend you guys giving it a shot at its price point, right around the $500 ballpark. You really can't beat this lens optically. So check it out. It's fantastic. Next up, we have arguably my favorite lens, the good old Sony 85 1.8. I adore this lens. This lens right here is my favorite simply because of just how damn good it makes every shot. When shooting at 1.8, the subject separation blows away the 35-1.4. This is just absolute butter. When shooting a vehicle straight on, oh my goodness, guys. I mean, it almost makes the image look 3D. Optically, this is my best lens by far. I'll probably post a video on the screen now that you guys can watch. Look at how much detail. Like, we're cropping in 300%. Look at that, guys. That is nuts. Like, what the hell? So when you pair up a lens that has this good of glass with 42 megapixels, your resolution is damn near endless. Now, recently, or within the past year or so, Samyang released an 85 1.4 that is supposed to be optically as good, if not better. I've been very tempted to purchase that and sell this, but this lens has never let me down, not once. With that said, I might purchase that lens and test the two and then get rid of whichever one I least desire, but this is my favorite. I wish that I could use this all the time, but unfortunately a lot of what I do is indoors, and the 85mm focal length indoors, not ideal. But this thing, guys, definitely have an 85 in your arsenal, because for portraits, cars, you name it, wonderful. Next up, we're going to touch on cleaning supplies. So when you're in the field, you never know what you're going to run into, and that's why we have this guy right here. The good old, I think they call it like the Master Blaster or something. It is just a small little cheap tool that all you do is you point this at your lens, squeeze it, and it blows like compressed air from the inside. This is such a good tool to have. There's so many times where I'll be shooting in an area where there's dust or there's sand, whatever it may be, and little specks get on the lens. The last thing you want to do is take your dirty shirt, wipe it all over your lens. You risk scratching your filters, you risk just smudging the lens, and then in post, it's just going to look splotchy. This removes 99% of the errors. You literally point, go like this a few times, boom, done. Now, the other cool thing about this one is I use this for sensor cleaning. I've seen the kits online, and I'll be honest, they're kind of daunting with the like little sticks that are pre-moistened. I've had so much success just holding my body. There's videos on YouTube, so pretend this is my sensor here. Hold the camera face down, spray up into it, and it has always removed any of the embedded contaminants that got on this sensor. So this tool is priceless in my opinion. I think it goes for like 10 bucks on Amazon. Highly, highly, highly recommend you having one of these. Now, another really good tool to have is gonna be this guy right here. This is by Insignia. This is Best Buy's brand. Again, I used to work there for 4 years, so I got a pretty stellar discount. Only reason I have this brand. But this guy right here is a little soft bristle brush. For this, I'll use if there's even something more stubborn that can't be removed by just the blower, I'll go over and kind of agitate it with this. These bristles are super soft. It's not gonna harm the lens element whatsoever. Now, this is not, I repeat, not something you wanna use on your sensor. This will damage it. Strictly use this for glass. Also, it's really good if there's like dust that gets inside your EVF, your electronic viewfinder. So I'll just go over it with this real quick, and it removes all the little dust particles and whatnot. So super cheap item. These probably go for like $3 to $4. Pair this up with the blower and you'll remove just about anything you guys need. Following up with that, let's say you try both of those and you still can't get whatever stubborn thing is on your glass. Then we go to this bad boy right here, the Zeiss Lens Wipe. Does not have to be the specific brand, but I'm a huge fan of this. This was a gift by my fiance. She got me like a pack of 250 2 years ago, and I've only gone through a handful. These are super good to have on deck because tons of times when I've been doing rollers, believe it or not, bugs will smack up against the lens and their bug guts will not come off. This is a pre-moistened wipe. In my experience, you pull it out. I let it dry for like 20 to 30 seconds before I go over the lens because my filters are coated. So when this is super moist out of the box or out of the bag, it will kind of smudge a little bit and smear, which is what you don't want. So I'll let it dry for a couple seconds, go over the entire glass element, and this removes 99.99% of anything. If there's anything left, I use the blower or the lens cleaning pen, and it gets 100% of everything gone. So big fan of these. They're super cheap. Again, I have about 20 of these in my bag at all times, just because you never ever know. It's also really good for like water drops. So if you guys are shooting and it starts raining or misting, this will remove any of the water spots on your filters or glass. So I'm sure when some of you guys heard the Sony a7R, you know immediately with the R2 and the original a7R, the battery life is garbage. So you almost always want to have spare batteries. I have these, they're by Power Extra. They were pretty cheap. This pack right here, I got 4 of them plus a dual charger for, I believe it was like 25 or 30 bucks. Now, I've had good success with these. I have a total of 5 batteries. Just filming this video, I'll probably go through 2 of them. That's how ridiculous this camera is. I mean, the processing power just drains these batteries like none other. I really wish that this camera had the Z batteries, like the newer ones. I believe that's what they're called. Don't quote me on that one, but eventually I will be upgrading because these batteries, I'm gonna have to order another pack if I really wanna do this video thing like full time. But they're cheap, they're good. I've had no issues, I've dropped them, no signs of wear and tear. Big fan. This is the pack or the charger it came with. You guys can probably search this name and it'll pull up on Amazon. Big fan. Can't complain whatsoever about those. Next up, this one kind of applies for maybe the people in the colder regions, not so much you guys down south or out west. It's gonna be gloves. Now, I'm not one that is really out shooting too much in the cold, but there has been a select few times that I have been, being, you know, someone from Illinois, specifically about 45 minutes west of Chicago. We get some pretty brutal winters. With that said, you want a pair of gloves. Now, is it the best? No. These were pretty cheap. I believe these were a gift, if I'm not mistaken. One of the few things that I do like about gloves, because typically I would just try to freehand it and just suffer, but there was one shoot I did where I was filming a little video, and it, no joke, was like 5 degrees that day. The wind chill was below 0. These gloves are awesome. The reason being is because it's a textured grip. So that was always my biggest fear with wearing gloves, is that you're gonna risk dropping the camera or losing your grip. Whereas this, you do not have that issue whatsoever. Another really cool thing about these, and it's kind of hard to tell, hopefully the lighting is doing justice, but there's this little pocket right here where your finger can actually escape or come out. So if your buttons are super compact on your camera and just using this big thing, you're gonna hit like 3 or 4, you can actually just poke your little fingertip out with your index finger and click the desired buttons you guys want. Same thing goes for the thumb. That's pretty cool. So when you're using the shutter, if you're using any of the buttons on the back, you don't have to worry about smashing the dials and it going all over the place. So these do a good job at that. They're not the warmest gloves. You could probably find some that have a little bit better insulation, but for my purpose, they do a great job, and it beats getting frostbite. On that same thing, let's talk camera straps. So for me, I'm not a fan of like the over the neck straps, whereas these I like. So this is my wrist strap. This is what I use primarily just for rolling shots. Now, when I'm hanging out of a vehicle, I don't use a harness. I'm gonna do a full video tutorial, guys, on how I take my rollers, whether it be editing them, the actual way I sit in the vehicle, my preferences on settings, things of that nature. I'll do a full write-up or a full video on that. That'll probably be coming this spring, so just be patient, because we just got like 6 inches of snow and they're calling for another like 6 or 8 inches of snow in a few days, so bear with me. I promise, guys, I'll start pumping out more videos as soon as I can. Now, back to this. This thing I found on Amazon, I think it was 15 bucks. It's a little just wrist strap. I like it because it's adjustable, and this is like somewhat plush. Like, it's not raw or rough on your skin. It's still pretty cushiony, but I've tested it a few times where I've tried to drop the camera to see if it does well, and it has never let me down. So check out this brand right here. Oh, focus. Altura, however you pronounce that. This thing is awesome. I had that now for about a year or 2. No complaints. Next up, probably one of, if not the most important thing any automotive photographer should have in terms of equipment, is going to be a polarizing filter, or a CPL, circular polarizer. I have these on every single one of my lenses. It is an absolute must in my opinion. It saves so much time in post-production. Brand-wise, there's like Hoya, Tiffin, B&W. This is just Best Buy's brand. With my discount, I got these things for a couple bucks a piece, so it was hard to justify getting anything else at that time. Shout out to my dog. You guys can probably hear that in the background. Sheba, enough. Now, you can go with any brand. These have done the job just fine. Once any of these get messed up, I do plan on going with a B&W. From all the reviews and research I've done, that tends to be the highest rated. But if you're in a pinch, you need something quick, I do recommend the Platinum Series brand options, and you guys can find that just about any Best Buy. So highly recommend these if you're in a pinch and you forgot one at home, or you just want to have a spare cheap filter that you're not too worried about. Not only do I have CPLs for every lens, but I also have UV filters just in case I'm doing portraits or nature. Not that I don't think I've ever done nature shots, but not a bad idea to have backups on these. Then we got good old SD cards. So here we got my Pelican case. This was going for about 25 bucks at the time of purchase 2 years ago, and I got this. The reason I went with this one over the other ones, because there's a lot of like soft shell cases that you can get. This one is a hard shell case, and it's also water resistant, and it has like a seal around the edges. So if you were to ever get stuck in the rain, if you were to drop this in a pond or whatnot, I don't know how you managed to do that, but if you did, this would not have any effect on the SD cards in there. It's also shock resistant, so if you were to drop it, it's not going to damage anything in the inside. Another cool thing about this one is just how many SD cards it holds. This one, it has spots for micro SD and SD cards, so it holds a total of 12 of each. I only use the full-size SD cards, just I've never really had a need for the micro SDs. I'm not going to go into too much detail on each of the different cards and what each of them mean, but small little tip, I recommend always having at least 64 gig SD cards with the write speed of at least 80 megabits or higher. The higher that number is, the faster the write speed. So if you're doing a burst, you're going to want the higher write speeds. Again, I'm sure there's hundreds of videos on YouTube discussing the differences and what all these speeds mean, so you guys can refer to those. Another cool little tip that I recommend is always having spare SD cards in your bag, not ones in your Pelican or SD card holder. The reason being is there's so many times I've gone on a shoot and I've realized, oh no, I left my case at home and I have no SD cards now. I leave about 2 to 3 of these in my bag at all times just as spare backups. It's not a bad idea, guys. These things you can get on Amazon for like $10 for a 32 gig. Have a couple spares, throw them somewhere in your bag that you won't lose them. And just in case the day comes where you forget one, you know you have some spares and you guys are not SOL. Next up, promotional items. So this one is totally up to you guys. It's not a necessity, but it's something I like to do. So I always carry different items. Mainly I have these decals, or I have my air fresheners from the brand I own, Eminence. Shout out to all the boys that are watching now. But this is something that it's a small gesture that goes a long way. The cool thing about these is it serves multiple purposes. Not only is it cool to give these to your client because it's just a kind gesture, but it's also a promotional product. So 9 out of 10 times when you hand these to your client, they're gonna wanna put it on the car. So if they do that, guys, you're getting like free shout-outs, especially if it's a cooler car or they have a decent social media following. It's free publicity. So for the couple cents these things cost, the turnaround or the reward on your end is huge. Same thing for air fresheners. These are a little bit more costly compared to going with the vinyl decals, but these smell incredible. If you guys want one, I'll have the link in the description. But another cool, just little prop, you know, it makes for some cool photos. Also, if you guys are trying to start your own brand, you can just give this to the client, or you can open it, put it in their car, of course, ask their permission first, and get some cool product shots. So again, small gesture that goes a long way. Now, last but not least, I don't know if you guys can see this, it's powering my new ring light, but I always recommend having a battery backup or a portable charger. I carry 2 of these, both of which are 15,000 milliamps. For those that are not familiar with that rating, that just means that they're pretty good sized batteries. So this can charge all of my batteries and still have juice left over. It's also good for charging your phone, your camera, whatever other accessories you have that might need to run on a charge. This is gonna be your saving grace. Another cool thing about this is there's so many times I've been out with clients where their phones are dying and they don't have a charger. So I'll hand them one of my power banks, and it usually allows for them to not have to worry, and then you maybe get a tip or whatnot, but it's just a really professional thing to have, and there's no reason not to have something that could save your shoot. So again, always carry one of these. Well, guys, I'm probably gonna wrap it up here. I don't wanna go too nitty gritty with all the extra stuff I have because I have a full on massive bag. I'll show you guys here. This was a gift from my fiance's mom. This is the Gorilla case. I don't even think I can fit this thing in the frame because it is massive. It is like almost the size of a suitcase, but it is a super, super great bag. That one now I've had for a little over 2 years and it has held up wonderfully. That thing is nice because it is water resistant. So I've been out on shoots where it starts to rain or mist and my gear is super safe. I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, or you could DM me on Instagram. I'm usually on both platforms all the time, so I'll try to get back to you guys in a timely manner. If you guys want any recommendations on gear, feel free to ask again. I will try to be as transparent as possible and point you guys in the right direction. With all that said, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully you got some takeaways from this, and I hope you guys all have an excellent day. I'll catch you in the next one. Later, guys.
I go my own way. I got my reason. 10 toes touchdown, that's real talk. I've been really heating up and yeah, I'm still hot. I don't never get the feels, but you real hot.